Tonight, we have a great show lined up for you right here on the program. Our focus is on the review of the Kigali City Master Plan, and we want to read your thoughts. You need to already be starting to tweet right now. Share your views concerning what aspects you would like to see in the new Master Plan after the review is done. My name, as always, is Eugene. I almost just said right there, my name as always is in focus. Okay, so what you need to do is just tweet us at the hashtag InFocusRW. It makes it easier to actually track your tweets. Do not mention me. You should not actually, it's not a must to mention my Twitter handle. If you just write your tweet with your comments, with your questions and your concerns, simply add InFocusRW, the hashtag. All we'll do is just click on that particular hashtag and it will take us direct to your questions. Some of you usually have really nice questions, nice contributions, but when you forget to add that hashtag, it becomes hard to actually track that particular question. Right, so let's just take a look at what we are already hearing right as far as the suggestions are concerned on what needs to be done. We have one from Caroline Dusave, who's actually saying we need more community spaces like parks and public play parks and spaces for children and families. We should not forget to plan for children in the next 5-year plan, because play is how children learn and develop. I could not agree better with that particular tweet right there. We'll be able to hear from our panelists on what exactly that will be done as far as this review is concerned. Parfait Karichezi says, one, in general, the Kigali City Master Plan needs to be more compact. Right, of course, it says connected road network that easily connects people to services and controllable. Number two, to put much considerations on implementation plan of green, open and recreational spaces for letting the city breathe. Again, right there, the word, the parks. This is what I'm trying to see coming through right about now. Another one right here, very interesting, is from Tweetan08, and he says that these high and aesthetically wanting roofings are becoming the standard in many Kigali areas and beyond. One, are they compulsory? Two, is it possible to find a better design that suits our beautiful landscape? I can tell you for sure, my wife really doesn't like this kind of roofing. We'll be hearing from the chairman of the Architects Association right here on the program. Songa on Twitter says, it's 2018, no public park in the CBD. We need a place where people can sit, relax, or grab a refreshment. Imagine the suffering of the job seekers who can't afford going to a restaurant or coffee shop as they wait for an appointment that might change their life. One last one here before we introduce our panelists right there. There again, we're hearing concerning the issue of the parks. Where are the parks? Spaces where communities can meet, interact, play chess while enjoying nature outside their homes in Kigali. And it was followed by a very interesting short video right there. Just take a look at that. Let me just introduce our panelists as we ponder about those particular tweets that have come through right about now. We have none other than Fred Mugisha, who is the Director of Kigali Urban Planning and Construction One-Stop Center. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you. And
also with us is Kayu of Architects. Thank you for being with us on the program.
Pleasure has been.
Also with us is none other than Eddie Chaze, who's in charge of urbanization, human settlement, and housing at the Ministry of Infrastructure. Thank you so much for joining us on the program. Gentlemen, we were not also able to be joined right here by Dr. Bazimia, who just had a loss of a very close relative, and we just condole with him at this particular time. And of course, let's now just get into this particular situation that we're talking about right here. It's been 5 years since the gazetting of the current master plan, and of course this calls for a review of the master plan 2013. The question that we have today is, if this master plan is not usually cast on stone, that it is not actually, you know, something that cannot be moved, cannot be changed, then why have we always been forcing, in quotes, people to actually follow the master plan as they construct, as they carry on their activities? I'll start with you.
Thank you. I will start with actually the city's planning direction. Well, you mentioned that within 5 years, of course, down the road, you're implementing the existing master plan. But before even the 5 years, we had already a comprehensive planning direction of the city, where in 2007, you had the concept master plan. And then in 2013, we had a detailed master plan that translated the broad strategies of the city into detailed land use plan. Now it's 5 years, of course, as you mentioned. But within these 5 years, of course, we have to look back and see what have we planned earlier and what have the vision we've set in the future if we have already reached it. But, and it is actually advisable in the master plan implementation report that within 3 to 5 years, the existing plan should be updated to reflect the contextual realities of the citizens. That's why we normally want to update the existing master plan to actually showcase the citizen that within this existing master plan, there are different challenges, there are different kind of gaps that can be identified, and then we set the collective measures.
So as we speak right now, what sort of gaps are you able to report back and tell us these are the things that we have not been able to actually achieve in the implementation of the 2013 master plan?
One of the gaps is actually, if you look at the way it is centered to the citizens, the existing master plan, the way the reaction of the citizens, of course, the citizens are the beneficiaries of this existing master plan. And the way it's reflecting their realities, it comes to attention that
the people.
Yes. Then now within this review, we want to be able to have the citizen-centered master plan, where we want the core objective of this master plan is actually to, of course, without forgetting other vision, for example, like Vision 2020, where we have the Rwandans actually should be consulted in any planning activities that is going to affect themselves, so that they can be involved in the decision making.
In the decision making and also implementation.
And the same thing actually in this decentralization policy, where it is stated that every development project should be actually citizen-centered. The citizens should be engaged from the starting from an early stage. That's why from this master plan, we want to be actually engaging from the starting
to the end,
okay. The citizens to be able to participate. I'm sure that if they're going to be participating fully, it's going to be easier for implementation of this master plan, because they're going to be feeling the sense of ownership.
Perfect. Let me bring in Eudes Kayumba. I want to hear from you how you feel hearing from the director at Kigali Urban Planning and Construction One-Stop Center admitting, in quotes, that we are actually implementing a master plan that is not, or was not actually so citizen-centered. That's why we want a more citizen-centered master plan as we do this review. How do you feel that that master plan that we're reviewing right now was not really citizen-centered?
Yeah, it's good that the director is admitting the reality. Me, as one of the stakeholders in the master plan implementation, I think we have a lot of concerns on the way, first of all, master plan was developed, and then how it's going to be implemented, because we just finished the first part, which is first 5 years, but master plan have got a longer life.
Yeah.
The good thing is that when master plan was enacted in 2013, we had just 1 year of existence of architects and engineers as legal entities existing. But even before that, the city of Kigali involved us in the process of the views, collection of ideas, and so on. But since the enactment of the kind of stakeholders in the process, but we had seen already the gaps that existed by then. And we think that this is the right time that we're going now to put lots of emphasis in putting those gaps into the bridges now, so that master plan responds to the people's needs.
The people's needs.
Yeah.
From Ministry of Infrastructure perspective, we've always pointed the finger at the parliamentarians for failing to actually implement or have a more citizen outreach program in everything that they do. So it now seems that we actually came up with a master plan in 2008, 2013 that was actually not so pro-citizens. How did that even happen?
Well, one side of the things I can tell is that perhaps, even the philosophy or the concept of urbanization has just picked up its rhythm right away from 2008 onwards. Urbanization wasn't really high on the agenda, in the national development agenda. And per se, when you look at even likely, unfortunately, our colleague hasn't been around here. I mean, has not made it. But like the urban planners, they're just actually reorganizing themselves into an association. It's from 2009 onwards when we started realizing that now professional urban planners are on board. By then, of course, the urban planning was just a new thing in the country, and it was really bringing few professionals and the likes to sort of support the process. So I can really tell that the trend has completely changed, and that's why now the public is now open. They understand the relevance of urban planning and urbanization, where we're heading. The government is at the top of it. So I believe it's a right now time to sort of correct all those mistakes.
It's the right time to correct the mistakes.
Yes.
It's never too late. This is what you're trying to say.
Too late.
But let's come back again to Fred. What you're trying to tell us here is that since you want the citizens to actually tell you what they wish to see as far as the city master plan is concerned, those wishes are going to be taken on board.
Yes.
Now, let's just take a scenario, for instance, of a practical example of what happened, like the declaration of the street that was actually declared as a car-free zone.
Yes.
So today, if the citizens came and said that we want that area to go back to what it used to be before, and we want people to continue doing businesses, cars to pass through those streets, would this be taken into account?
Well, of course, we are actually have an intense participatory processes in this review of this master plan. But of course, we are not, we are actually want these participatory processes, but without losing the track of overarching vision of the country. If we receive some comments that is actually not maybe in the line of the government vision, of course, we have to agree with the comments and say, okay, for example, the car-free zone you have already mentioned, that the good thing I have seen people were tweeting us saying we want open spaces, how in CBD, we want something that is very vibrant in CBD. The good thing for the car-free zone is going to cater for this. And if the citizens per se is not actually happy for what we are planning, of course, we have to assess the comments and see is these comments actually reflecting the reality of the government and actually in the city perspective, in the sense of creating that sense of ownership to the city. And the same thing is, if the comments actually, as I mentioned, that we have already put some blogs, some kind of platform people should throw their comments, the ideas, the opinions. But all the opinions and ideas, I'm pretty sure that are going to be lying in different themes. So through these themes, we are going to say, okay, through all these comments, how can we shape the city's vision now? And from this vision, we can actually, of course, we are in the same line with the government vision of 2050. If we have the comment that's not actually in the same line of the government
it will be thrown
vision,
away.
It will be, of course, captured and tell today, of course, every comment is actually very valuable information to us. That there is actually what we have proposed, but there are some people who have applauded this decision. So we can actually see, okay, can we go through this kind of direction for the citizen, because of course it's citizen-centered master plan, or we can do a kind of focus group discussion about the decision.
What's the definition of citizen-centered? I mean, try to just break down that for us. First of all, how far can it go? How far can a comment of a citizen go to actually fit this criteria, apart from being in line with the government's vision?
One of the things is that we want to showcase the existing master plan and what is actually want to update the master plan, that this master plan belongs to the citizen, it don't belong to the government. And it's the citizens that are going to implement this master plan that is under review. To be a citizen-centered is that from the early stage of preparation, it's you as a citizen who actually throw the ideas, throw the opinion, how you want the city to be shaped in the next 20 years' time to come. If we collect all these comments and have these reports of the comments, and we draw a conclusion from the comments that this is actually the city master plan we want in the future, of course we have read the best today comments of the citizens. This is actually the way, I can say, the citizen-centered master plan.
Citizen-centered master plan. Yes. What do the architects want?
We want really a master plan which responds to citizens' needs. That's number one. We want a master plan that goes in line with the economy, that is affordable. A master plan that doesn't throw out people because of their economic level. We want a master plan that doesn't leave out our heritage. Mm-hmm. We want a master plan that is inclusive. We have lots of successful pony. How can we use those quality, local or home-based solutions when you're dealing with our master plan? Mm. Especially when we are seeing that Kigali is special. It's considered as a city which is peculiar. Many people see it as a city which is very clean, very green, although actually that greenery is becoming naturally, not according to the master plan. How can we improve from that peculiarity of Kigali? Mm. Yeah.
So what are the architects saying? Because that's what I want to hear. Like, what did they send you to tell the people who are actually at the forefront of actually implementing this or working on this review? What did they send you? Because you sit here on their behalf. They were not able to actually make it on this particular panel. So you better represent them well. What did they send you to say?
Yeah, well, it's difficult that I would get all the views of citizens, even all professionals, as he said. Professionals who are involved in the implementation of master plans are many. By the way, master plan is not building the roads and the parks. Master plan is life. It's the life of people. Buildings just reflects what actually those people demand at the end. So we want a master plan, which is an illustration of people's, I said culture, I said heritage, and so on, but which is diverse. Mm. A master plan which gets people into the center, gets out easily, but also that is inclusive, where people of all levels of economy can interact.
Can interact in that particular master plan. Let's go to the Ministry of Infrastructure, because some of the other things that will be focused on in this review is the planning, transport, infrastructure, housing, and environment in the city of Kigali. Let's take a moment and just talk about one of those areas, and that is the issue of transport, because most of the time we've seen, some citizens stranded across the streets of Kigali because the buses are either not, plying that route anymore at that particular time. So what should citizens expect from this review? Because you just says clearly that the master plan is not just about the buildings, it's not just about the roads, but let's speak on the issue of the transportation. What should they expect?
Yeah, well, what they should expect is none other than, of course, looking at how we can incorporate now these challenges that we are seeing in terms of public transport. Perhaps if we start with the side of services, the services are to do with how long you take, waiting for the bus or traveling to a given point from point A to point B. What is the cause of that delay and, that sort of thing. One of them, of course, is not only to do, starting with the service itself, looking at maybe the capacity of the travel, connecting from place A to B, and the number of people that are taking that route, and again looking at the capacity, the road capacity to, to cater for that. At least for the moment, the city of Kigali is really, even prior to the revision of the master plan, they've been looking at this, they did a traffic analysis, and they see a lot of routes, key routes that need to be improved in terms of either widening the roads to create a bus rapid transits, they call BRTs, prioritizing the public transport, because it's one of the priorities among this review, making a city to be more green and more, public transport oriented.
So should we expect to see more towers to expand the roads?
That's one of the options, but also we are looking at other options, for example, to connect the mountains that we have. Our nature, the city of Kigali is really located on how many mountains. We can use cable cars and what. But all doing these BRTs, the bus rapid transits, we need to look at how we can create densities in those areas. They have to make sense, economic viability, in terms of really not opening up roads, but ensuring that even these open roads that are opened up, those corridors are have densities that are really can create more economic viability.
Right.
And the biggest challenge, of course, Fred might not have told you, is that the city in itself has really grown massively large. It's sprawling. In terms of density, it's still low. The densities needs to be improved. And when you look at different countries out there, developed countries, they have really mastered the issue of densities, how to improve the densities to, as you become more denser, the more productive you are, the more specialized you are, the more there are a lot of economies of scale or agglomeration economies that can arise out of that.
Right.
So with this transport idea of we need to again work it around, not only in terms of transport but also look at the housing development, the commercial. It has to be sort of mixed use. Let's not create dormitories at the other side of the corridor, and then have the city very busy during day, but in the night, in the evening, it's completely dead. Let's try to create some sort of mixed developments to ensure that there's a flow in and out, and not to see more in the morning all cars heading to the city center, and the other route heading outside the city center is just empty. But let's try to create all those businesses and busy routes and ensure that they are becoming more productive.
And this is what we're expecting from this.
Yeah.
You want to jump in?
Yeah, I want to jump in on that. Actually, there is one thing which has missed in our planning. The city of Kigali is sprawling outside very quickly, instead of densifying.
Yes.
And this is something of a concern, because
Is that a bad thing?
it's a bad thing, because you're actually stretching over infrastructure which is too expensive to get to people. And it's much easier to bring people closer to the CBDs or the nodes of the city by creating homes, offices, other amenities, markets within those distances. So this master plan really should start considering that.
But some people would argue and say we want to decentralize. Let's have a convention center in Bugesera, in other places, so that those people are also able to enjoy these amenities that they cannot be able to reach in Kigali city.
Yeah, maybe if I continue to that, it's fine when you have the city which is congested. Kigali is not congested. Of course, we don't want it to be congested.
In just a few years.
But actually, with the trend we have today, it's difficult, because we're not having actually what we can call affordable or low cost. If you say low cost, it sounds really, really bad, maybe. Affordable accommodation close to the working places. Today, we were supposed to have lots of apartments which are affordable, because apartments which are being built in the city center are not affordable to people. These young professionals, graduates, are supposed to be able to afford an apartment in the city center, because this is a person who doesn't want to drive. He wants to walk to work, to job. Sure. Same thing to Kachiru, where a lot of ministries are. We're supposed to have accommodations which are affordable to people, apartments, 2 rooms, 3 rooms, for people who are young.
Bed sitters.
Yes, bed sitters like that. So this is something which, of course, we didn't inherit a master plan which was done by colonial time. But if you look into East Africa, the cities of Kampala, Nairobi, Dar es Salaam, they have those kind of accommodations which were done by colonials.
Yeah. But it was Fred and the teams that actually told people through the current master plan that this is the kind of apartments you need to construct, this is the level of story building that you need to construct in this area. So why didn't you consider this? Because most of the time you find that anybody, before they construct, they have to follow the master plan.
Yes.
And this is what he says, it is not actually answering to those needs, answering to those concerns of the young people who can actually afford, and also not stretching the resources that the country is actually not able to actually facilitate.
Honestly speaking, the existing master plan is catering this, what is Kayumba was saying. But I agree that maybe the existing apartment that we are actually offering to these graduates are not affordable to them, as he says. But still, it's up to private sector, I can actually call it private sector as an architect, to see how can we actually provide affordable kind of apartments that is going to be catering all these fresh graduates. But from the city perspective, we are actually promoting a so-called compact mixed-use city, as Eddie was saying, where we allow actually the development as a one entity, where we have the ground floor as a commercials, in between as a offices, and above as apartments, so that we don't want people, we're actually limiting people to travel most, so that they can walk through close to their homes. But the good thing for the master plan is the way it is designed. It's have very good innovative approach, but implementation, where this is where exactly have a challenge. But the way it is planning perspective, it's well designed. Yeah. But with your implementation, of course, we have to, everything where we go, implementing any planning processes is going to be a challenge. And together with actually the stakeholders, together with the architects, together with the engineers, we can try to find a solution of, well, we are promoting this compact city. We are promoting this apartment in the CBD so that we don't have a dead city during the night. But how can we make it affordable? This is actually the kind of strategies in this review we want to see. Okay, the citizen perspective, they say, well, we need this one, but it is not affordable to all. How can we have inclusional zoning? How can we have inclusive master plan that is going to cater for them? That's why we did this outreach campaign to see this is something that is going to be needed in the economy of the country, but how can we reach this?
So do you agree that this is what should have been done first?
Yes. When
the 2013 master plan was actually being done, we kind of put the cart ahead of the horse. We decided to bring in experts. Probably we should just shut down and look at Rwanda and just say what are our unique challenges, so that we can find our unique solutions. Exactly. And not wait for the Singaporeans, because we want to be like Singapore and just have a city that answers to our real issues. Is this the direction we need to take?
Completely right. You're completely right. That's why actually the idea of coming back to the citizen-centered approach is completely the best option actually world over. You'll never plan something for people without engaging them. That's where the disagreements can be harmonized. That's where you come to a common, there's that sense of ownership within itself. And the cultural issues he has come back to, and the traditional issues, we don't want to see the Singapore of, in Kigali. We would like to see that nature, the traditional, the in-set Rwandan context of things. Right. And moving forward, actually, on the case of master plan, the master plan shouldn't tie itself on the spatial context of planning. It should be tied to the economic context of planning. We shouldn't forget the economic planning and the spatial. They should be married together with the vision of the country where we are heading. And Rwanda wants to be a high-income country by 2050. Right. What is the role of the city of Kigali? How do we turn the spatial component of planning along? How do we move it together with the economic planning side? We need to take a bullish view of how to unleash the potential that Kigali has.
Right. But the challenge is very few people even know what the 2013 master plan says and looks like. I mean, very few people even have been able to look at it and have been able, unless if someone wants to actually carry out a construction or buy a piece of land, so they can be able to know what the master plan says they should do in that particular piece of land. Otherwise, not so many people know about this 2013. So how are they going to contribute to a review of something they don't even know about?
Actually, well, from the starting, they didn't know that there is already existing master plan. And of course, from the city perspective, we set different platforms where people should access the master plan in the most easiest way. We set up the communication tools, how people can actually be communicated with the master plan. But of course, the 100% of the people are not yet able to go on the website and see how can I actually access my plot, particular plot, and know what is zoned over there. Right. And of course, it's this professionals that are going to see what is planned in your entire plot and how can we get a particular construction permit.
And they will even charge you for that particular service. So how do we empower these citizens and make them able to avoid that extra cost of someone else going to check for them?
Exactly. Within this review, and already we started it, we want actually, of course, we have the lowest, the administrative entity called the village level, where we want to have its own master plan. If we have specific plots, for example, 26 plots in a kind of entity, a village level, each citizen should understand exactly. It is going to be communicated with a kind of language that can be able to understand that this particular area is zoned for this a certain usage, so that everybody now understand, okay, within my village, of course, I understand the particular zoning is for commercials, and of course have to develop the commercial district. So everybody, we are actually developing different communication tools so that everybody should be on board about what are we planning for him or for her.
Okay.
Just to compliment him. This is, part of, luckily enough, I'm part of the technical advisory group that is really helping with the review of the master plan. These are issues that we've already aired out. I mean, we should focus on the citizens, how to help them actually get the best out of the master plan. In terms of implementing it, we should be developing implementation, strategies to escort it, which was not something that was developed initially. It was an implementation plan, a capital investment plan, and that sort of thing. But right now, we need to look at how to engage with them, to advise them strategically. If you have a plot of 20 by 30, but you have your neighbor whom you can join together, you pull your land together and have a tangible project out of the same combination. How do we provide an incentive to you, and how do we support you? So we requested that this master plan, as moving forward, it should be sort of in a language that is very understandable. How many people speak English or understand it? If it's in English, then you'll already find the other how many percentage. Exactly, yeah. But if you make it, they shouldn't see it as a monster. We always say it, a monster in the forest, in the room. But they should really be, it should be user friendly and engaging, and that's why we still wish that we will trigger even the district councillors to be owners of this tool. They should be actually representing, the city's initiatives and objectives and goals with the local community. So they need to know it. They need to talk to the community in the same language as they do send them to represent them in the city.
Right. It is. I mean, I hear that we still need to, and every time I hear we still need to, it talks to my mind that we still haven't done what we are saying we need to do. Does it worry you that he's actually alluded to the fact that implementation is usually the challenge?
Yeah.
The fact that we still haven't set up those mechanisms that will help us actually fully implement whatever review that will come up.
Yeah.
Does it worry you?
It does, but I have a hope. First of all, it's 5 years. A master plan is for 2050, so we still have a long way to go. These first 5 years have taught us a lesson which we need to really go back and make sure that now it works. What he says is true, that people really didn't understand the master plan. Although it's supposed to be people-centered, but it's only in English. It's supposed to be communicative. But I have some challenges which are really practical when it comes to making a master plan for City of Kigali. City of Kigali, or what you call the MVK, is about 740 square kilometers. A whole country of Singapore is 720. So Kigali city is bigger than Singapore. Kigali have 1.2 or 1.3 million. Singapore have 5.5. They want more, about 6 million. Today, when you talk about master plan, we're including everything, including the farm areas, the parks, beyond it, mainly in Gasabo area, and we're talking about the CBD areas. So I think the other most important part to look at is to make sure that we want to see those areas which are going to attract investment, like the buildings, commercial, residential, and so on and so forth. And you should understand that the way city functions is just like a human being body. It's just like your own residence. That we need to understand where is our sitting room or where our busy area is, which is the CBDs or the nodes of the city. And maybe reduce our concentration in those areas which are not attracting much of the investments. Of course, I'm not ignoring agriculture in the city, but we can still implement agriculture because you have our valleys in Kigali city, which can be parks, but also can keep our agriculture, small farms in the city of Kigali, which is not happening elsewhere in the world, that we can have agriculture in Kigali. But we have big area of Kigali that needs master plan, 730, he corrected me. And I see it to be too much.
It is too much.
It's too much, actually. Kigali, really, does it need 740 square kilometers?
Is it too much?
Honestly speaking, this 730, my colleague is saying, it's not all the developable land. If you look at the topography of the city of Kigali itself, it's not actually allowing any kind of development. Within this hilly terrain of the city of Kigali, within this wetland, within these steep slopes, we are actually going to remain with 33% of the 730 square kilometers, which are close to 244 square kilometers that is going to be developed. And within these 244 that is going to be developable land, it's not all that is going to host housing, as per se. Of course, there are some 50%, let me say 50% is going to be for infrastructures, for transport, for open spaces, for reserve sites. And the remaining 50% is going to be for housing. This is 122 square kilometers. If you look at the way people want to construct today, they want this kind of horizontal development. They want their own home. If we continue to allow this kind of development of horizontal development in 122 square kilometers, then what's going to be increased anymore? The boundary is going to be the same. We are going to house even less than what is projected in 2050, which means that we want to densify the development from today. So having the master plan is well, it's very nice, but I want to tell my colleague that if we have a certain limited land, and within this master plan, some people, I'm pretty sure that people are going to say it's not affordable because they want to have the vertical development in order to have maximum utilization of this land that is not going to increase anymore. They're saying, well, we don't want these apartments. But if you look at the vision of the country, even 2050, we want to be a high-income earning country. And then we still want to develop this curricular kind of development in a single housing kind of envelope. We are not going to reach that 500 or 5 million population in 2040. And you remember that the resource you have in the city of Kigali and the country in general is the citizens. We actually want this urbanization to increase, but at the end, we want to be prepared for this urbanization.
Right, but then how far then do you go as the people who are actually planning for the urbanization and of course dealing with the construction issues at the one-stop center? How far then can you go? Do you just tell the people that these are the types of houses we need to have, and then the investors come, some of them exploit the citizens with the high costs? So where or who actually protects these citizens, much as you dictate or guide on what sort of houses need to be constructed? What sort of protection then do the citizens get from you, apart from just telling them that these are the types of houses that need to be constructed? How do you cushion them from the high costs then that come with that suggestion of the houses that need to be constructed there?
Well, what the cities actually have to do is to create this platform, all this kind of planning direction, but the product out of it is going to be implemented by the citizens.
Right.
Now, what we as a government is doing is actually to set up the zone or regulatory tool to say if we want to develop into a certain area, into a certain plot, having the city's vision, the city's direction, this is the kind of housing, this is actually the number of apartments we might develop so that we exploit this limited land we have in the city. The protection you are saying is that, of course, if any local citizen who owns the land, of course, by the way, another challenge we have, I think my colleagues is, I don't know whether they're aware, we are actually have a limited state-owned land. The land is owned by the public. by the citizens. So we are planning something, of course, that's why I want to be a citizen-centered master plan, because we are preparing something that is going to be directing the city's needs in the public land. Of course, it's you who owns that land that's going to implement what the city wants. So when it comes to the protection of the citizen, of course, good enough we have the regulations that actually says if someone wants to be compensated, if want to be expropriated, the legal framework that is clear says should get fair and fair compensation. Right. But whoever buys that particular plot, he has to follow with the zoning guidelines of the entire
country. I mean, I want to hear your thoughts again, my friend from the Ministry of Infrastructure, because here Engineer Fred says earlier on that this master plan is not for the city, but for its people. And today, when we look at some of the concerns that several citizens have actually raised, they have somehow complained that this master plan actually made my construction or my activities get stopped from actually going on. We've had some people whose maybe infrastructure or whatever they had constructed brought down because they didn't follow the guidelines of the master plan. So how then will they believe that kind of a statement, that this master plan is theirs and it is them who will actually implement it, when it is actually being used to actually stop what they either plan to do in their pieces of land? How will they believe this statement?
I think this is the right time now to change the whole approach that we used, was used in the past 5 years. I think I said it earlier on to do with implementation strategies. If you do a plan without escorting it with the implementation strategies, which have to be again escorted with a communication, arrangement, then things will not work.
Yeah.
In that case, for such buildings that were really put down, it's because, for example, if I can give a typical example. If the master plan comes out, it gets to be adopted, the first quick thing that the city government should have done was to sort of now, demarcate the land that is made for infrastructure. As you demarcate it, set up strategic land acquisition means in a way that you have to buy off land to cater for the other land reserves that you need for the development of the infrastructure. But here comes an issue when the road was planned, but there wasn't anything to escort it, to say, well, this road is going to be such kind of meters wide, and we see for us to do it, we need to acquire this land prior to the implementation of the project. The project could be done 10 years ahead in the future. But if you acquire the land right now, you gazette it as for infrastructure and you acquire it from the private hands, then you are able, the costs of having it in 10 years will be very minimal that compared to when you will have it in 10 years, because the land continues to appreciate.
It appreciates.
Even then, as you move ahead with the developments that the landowners along that route, they will know that such a kind of road will be coming around this time, and I'm comfortable developing this area because I'm already out of the road reserves that the city wants. Somehow, the more you engage with them, going deeper to the local level and the local community with the support of even the district councillors and all those leaders, that becomes quite easier.
Right.
Yeah.
Other than having some friction.
Yeah. If you leave it at the top, it will
not
work.
Yeah. Are you worried? Because we cannot close our eyes and just ignore the fact that some situations have been happening across the neighboring countries, like in Kenya. We've seen the demolitions going on of properties that were actually constructed on what is called riparian land. How does Rwanda avoid such kind of situations? As I move to our super wall, just to read some of the tweets that have come through, how can we avoid this scenario? Because we're still actually growing at a very fast pace as far as construction is concerned.
Yeah, the good thing about our master plan that it's interactive. Professionals can easily understand what development is supposed to take place in a certain place. And knowing, especially like infrastructure, where roads are supposed to pass by, where the green part is, and everything which is supposed to be implemented in a master plan. So unless someone is not keen, or he does it willingly, but it's very easy
Right.
to follow and avoid this kind of incidents on demolishing
Right.
the properties.
So it is going to be easier.
It's very easy for our master plan currently. We have all interactive materials to understand what is supposed to be done in a certain place.
Right. And what would you say about this roofing? Are you the ones telling architects to actually come up with this kind of roofing that one of our viewers actually sent up here? The roofs that are actually going like this.
Yeah. I read that tweet, and someone actually responded. I think the guy who responded is an architect. He said, you guys should look at professionals like an architect to advise you the best way.
Right.
It's true that we have lost almost a floor there. The spaces under that roof. Yeah.
Okay, so let's just quickly take a look at some of the tweets that have actually come through as far as this topic that we are having here is concerned. I have Mugabo Gustav, who's actually saying that the parliament recently was questioning the government about the occupation of housing development over agricultural use. How will the revised version of Kigali Master Plan address such issue in light of sustainable urbanization? I think you can be able to take that.
Actually, this master plan is going to be in line with the existing planning document you have already in line. For example, if we have the agricultural master plan for the Line Ministry, so this master plan is going to complement the two studies so that they should talk the same language so that we can avoid these overlaps that might be seen.
Right. Okay, there's another one here, very interesting, from Luisa, who says, yes, but I'm serious about this question. Where exactly to get reliable information to avoid constructing against the master plan and even future plans that might not yet be out? You know, probably after the next 5 years you want to change again, and someone had already put up something that during the changes would need to go off. So where will they be able to get this information? This is, I think, a very important question that we need to actually address.
Yeah. I'm sure the colleagues from the authorities would be the best to respond, but I would like to be the devil's advocate here. We need professionals in all levels of administration if we want to implement the master plan.
So you want to say we do not have professionals today?
We have few.
We
need to have people up to the level of the village who can help these people actually who wants to implement the master plan, who wants to build their own homes. We need to have at least one planner or one architect, one engineer.
How far are we from getting that? Because this is important. So the longer we take to get that in place, that means the more people will continue suffering. So how far are we from getting to what you is actually suggesting?
The numbers are there already now. In the past, we used to say we don't have professionals, but now we have enough graduates in all fields, engineering, architecture, planning.
But you're shooting yourself on the foot. You just said we don't have enough. We have few.
Not really. Actually, we had few, but now our universities are giving out more graduates in the fields. Yeah.
Okay, let's read another one right here from Asaf, who says, Mr. Kayumba, Kigali City extending to new places is actually a good for service provision. It's more difficult to expand infrastructure in an already developed area. Think of increasing water supply pipes in the CBD as congested as it is. Do you agree with him?
Well, not entirely, because expanding further stretches the little resources we have to put their infrastructure, electricity, roads, water, and so on. While if we condense, it's easy to do supplies.
And just to compliment him, right now, the number of kilometers of roads and the services that exist in Kigali are sufficient enough actually to take us to for the next 10 years without even doing any new infrastructure.
Really?
Yes, if we were to densify. So the more we sprawl, the more costly in terms of transport, in terms of infrastructure, investments, in terms of, you know, we are yet to understand the value of land.
Right. But someone was actually suggesting that infrastructure like the Kigali Convention Center, it should be taken far away, like where the new airport is, because whenever leaders are here for conferences, it's a total lockdown in the city.
of course, that comes back again to the gaps in the transportation planning. With such a facility to be established there, there should have been, thinking around now the transport, all of the possible alternatives. I think as we're moving forward with the review of the master plan, we will hear about tunnels and,
and flyovers.
And flyovers. That's one of the options. Otherwise, the thinking was that, the development was more focused on the development itself without even thinking about the neighborhood and the other impacts that will happen. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So there's assurance that this will actually happen.
Is, yes.
We'll focus now on the transportation issue.
True.
Right. Okay. Let's read this one real quick from Vincent Shirungu, who's actually saying that the review of the Kigali master plan take consideration of the existing housing. For example, for the area where existing are the single family houses, and when you take a look at the Kigali master plan, we found they're planned for high-rise apartment. How will it be in future after constructed or actually constructing these high-rise apartments? What sort of assurance would you give these people who today are actually following the 2013 master plan, which is bound to change after a few more years? How do you assure them?
Well, I think the comment is right. We have already existing single-family housing that is already planned. But of course, as I mentioned earlier, that the land we have and the projected population you have cannot cater all this population. So they will need to redevelop according to demand projections.
Right.
And again, with urban development, it's a process. It's not something, you don't want to develop something for 2050 today.
Yeah.
No.
Okay, let's read this one from Richard real quick. Richard says, Kigali's population is increasing because of increased urbanization. Demand for housing, transport, etc. will continue to grow. There is need for a master plan for other secondary cities too, in order to manage well Kigali's growth and master plan.
Yeah, he's completely right. But of course, right now, I should say, for the moment, of course, the debate is around Kigali, but I should say Kigali is, in terms of productivity, Kigali is 7 times more than the next secondary city. So there's a lot of potential still in Kigali, but the secondary cities, there's also more focus, and their revision is actually going to take place for the master plans for the 6 secondary cities.
Right, perfect. Yeah. This one is Dr. Elvis Binda, who's actually saying, I think he has a protest here. Constructions are put on hold for non-compliance with the city master plan, but I've also seen other buildings constructed without their reflection on the master plan. He actually has an example, the RSSP Twin Towers. Do we have a double standard in implementation? What would you say to this man?
Well, I don't think there is a double standard in a master plan implementation. Well, if there is non-compliance, of course, non-compliance, and of course, we want compliance buildings. So I don't see any double standards.
So if he has anywhere to complain, where does he go to?
We can actually drop in the office any time in the city.
You can pass by your offices. Perfect. So I can see so many tweets really coming through. Let's talk about some of the comments that came through as far as the, the green, getting the gardens and all that. Are you happy to tell us anything about this? How will they know that those concerns that they're actually raising will actually be taken into account? What sort of assurance is there?
I mean, Eugene, you are completely right. Actually, the master plan in itself, I will still come back to the implementation strategies that were in place. The master plan has a lot of green, open public spaces. But again, they are in the plan.
They're closed. I mean, no public can go there, have a picnic.
Those public spaces seem to be prohibitively public. And this is what we have to unleash.
Let's ask him, why are you not opening them up for the public, the current green areas we have today? What's the reason behind locking them off from public access?
There is a private public space and the public space.
Private for who?
Shared.
Private for who?
Public space, of course, depending on the owners. So within this master plan, as my colleague was saying, of course, within this review, of course, we have seen this as a challenge that there is no existing open spaces, and how, if the already master plan caters for all, but how can we implement it? Do we have implementation mechanisms for open spaces? Because I know that people are crying for it. So that's something we're going to cater in this review.
I think it's a challenge, especially to the city and the other authorities, because public spaces or public parks are supposed to be done by the authorities, not private people. The first 5 years of implementing master plan, the city and other authorities which support the city haven't done their part. While the private sectors have tried their level best actually to follow up the master plan. So maybe this should be the focus of putting in place public parks, public squares, and the others. Because it's true, when you walk in Kigali, quite difficult, just as it is difficult to get a public toilet, it's very difficult to get somewhere where you can sit. So
the cry actually follow up on those areas.
And for the case of Kigali being a city of urban excellence, these are components that you cannot deal away with. Conviviality, improving the quality of life, the quality, having public spaces, and that's part of the, contribution to the. So
you're assuring the people watching us today that these things will be put in.
They will have to be put in place if they are escorted with very good strategies to acquire land. For example, he said completely, land is in the private hands. So for the city to have a public space and for you to convince somebody who owns a piece of land that is going to be a garden or sort of a public space where you're going to put chairs, it's not something easy. That's why you have to sort of engage them and acquire the land as a city to provide that facility.
Thank you so much. I'm told that this is all the time we had for this particular conversation, but we want to say thank you. The 1 hour is just done like that, kaput. But of course, as well, for you who has been tweeting, keep tweeting. The conversation ends in these 4 walls, but it actually does continue on our social media platforms. Keep tweeting, and you can actually tag the people concerned. We have at KGL Plan 2050. I'm hoping they'll be able to hear your concerns, and we'll be able to follow up on this to the latter, and we hope that they'll take in consideration some of the things that we'll be raising as far as the City Master Plan Review is concerned. As always, my name is Eugene Anangwe. Goodbye for now.